In Part 1, we delved into the early life and personality of the Austrian painter during his youth. We traced his upbringing and explored how his thoughts and ideologies gradually evolved, ultimately leading him down the path to becoming a dictator. If you're new to our channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode on world history. Thanks for watching. In August 1914, at the outbreak of World War I, Hitler was living in Munich and voluntarily enlisted in the Bavarian army. According to a 1924 report by the Bavarian authorities, allowing Hitler to serve was most likely an administrative error because, as an Austrian citizen, he should have been returned to Austria. Posted to the Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment 16, 1st Company of the List Regiment, he served as a dispatch runner on the Western Front in France and Belgium, spending nearly half his time at the regimental headquarters in Fournen-Weps, well behind the front lines. In 1914, he was present at the First Battle of Ypres, and in that year was decorated for bravery, receiving the Iron Cross, 2nd class. 3 months later, in August 1918, on a recommendation by Lieutenant Hugo Gutmann, his Jewish superior, Hitler received the Iron Cross, 1st class, a decoration rarely awarded at Hitler's Gefreiter rank. On the 15th of October 1918, he was temporarily blinded in a mustard gas attack and was hospitalized in Pasewalk. While there, Hitler learned of Germany's defeat and, by his own account, suffered a second bout of blindness after receiving this news. He was also very lucky and had many close encounters with death. His luck ran out in 1916. However, when an artillery shell injured his leg, he went back to Germany to recover and was outraged to find a general apathetic anti-war attitude among the exhausted and hungry German populace. With the war turning against Germany, he returns to the front lines, but was temporarily blinded by a British gas attack in 1918, a month later, still recovering in hospital. Hitler learned of Germany's defeat and surrender. The terms of the peace treaty were tough on Germany. It had to pay a lot of money and lose a lot of soldiers. These conditions weakened Germany and humiliated the German people. Europe's borders changed after the war too. New countries were formed out of Russia's lost territory. Austria-Hungary was dissolved, and there was one big new country splitting Germany into two. Hitler is seeing the country he loved humiliated like this, said that hatred grew in him for those responsible, by which he meant communists and Jews, who he believed had stabbed Germany in the back by spreading dissent and anti-war propaganda back home. Due to the reduction of Germany's military, Hitler could no longer serve as a soldier after the war. However, he continued to work for the army as an informant. After the war, there were attempts at revolution by communists in Germany, raising concerns among the government about the spread of communism. Consequently, Hitler was assigned to infiltrate and report on any new political parties that might pose a communist threat. One group, the German Workers' Party, caught his attention because they raised several red flags. When he attended one of their meetings, he discovered they were not communists, but rather far-right extremists who shared many of his beliefs. As a result, he left the army and joined the party. His remarkable speaking skills quickly won over the party's leaders and supporters, leading to his rapid rise in their ranks. Hitler believed the party needed a rebranding, so he renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly known as the Nazis, and introduced a new color scheme. The Nazis did not have a detailed policy agenda. However, Hitler made grand promises to restore Germany's former glory by reversing the Treaty of Versailles and uniting all ethnic Germans into one nation. He also claimed that only pure Aryans should be citizens, stripping Jews of their citizenship. While these ideas were popular within extreme right politics, it was Hitler's charisma that set the Nazis apart, making them the leading party on the far right. The democratic government formed post-World War I was weak and ineffective. To fulfill reparations owed to the Allies, the government began printing more money, which devalued the currency. For instance, in 1919, $1 equaled around 4 German marks, but by December 1923, it skyrocketed to 4.2 trillion marks. Prices soared, with bread costing 200 billion marks, rendering banknotes worthless. In this economic turmoil, Germany struggled to meet its obligations to the Allies, infuriating the French, who responded by occupying the Ruhr region, seizing its economic output. The treatment of German civilians was harsh, resulting in approximately 130 deaths during the occupation. This outrage fueled Hitler and the Nazis' desire for a revolution. In November 1923, inspired by a bold Italian leader's actions from the previous year, Hitler interrupted a beer hall meeting, calling for an uprising against the government. Accompanied by his supporters, he marched through Munich, expecting police support, but they did not side with him. Following this failed coup, Hitler faced trial for treason. Although he could have received a life sentence, sympathetic right-wing judges showed leniency. Taking advantage of the situation, Hitler delivered passionate speeches during his trial, resulting in a mere 5-year prison sentence, of which he served only 9 months. His time in prison resembled a comfortable hotel stay, allowing him to write a book. The media coverage surrounding the trial catapulted him to fame, making his extremist views known throughout Germany. However, ordinary Germans remained largely uninterested in him, as evidenced by the 1928 election, where the Nazis secured only about 2% of the vote. Many were intimidated by the party's violent tactics and Hitler's unconventional behavior, but a new economic crisis would shift public sentiment. America agreed to provide loans to help Germany with its reparations, yet the Wall Street crash in October 1929 led to demands for repayment. This exacerbated the already dire economic conditions, causing unemployment rates to soar and widespread poverty to ensue. Frustrated with the faltering democracy, Germans turned to the extremes of the political spectrum. Faced with the urgency for change, voters now had 2 options: the communists or the Nazis. Hitler asserted he was the only person capable of restoring Germany's greatness. The Nazi Party employed propaganda to portray Hitler as a powerful figure and provided the populace with scapegoats for their suffering. The allure of a strong, singular dictator was appealing to Germans, disillusioned by years of ineffective democratic governance. Some people embraced his radical ideology, others opposed his racism but felt compelled to vote for him anyway. Many were politically uninformed and simply caught up in the excitement. With each election, the Nazi Party's popularity surged until, in 1932, they emerged as the largest party in the German parliament. Convinced of his destined role as Germany's savior, Hitler developed a megalomaniacal outlook. Faced with the urgency for change, voters now had 2 options: the communists or the Nazis. Hitler asserted he was the only person capable of restoring Germany's greatness. The Nazi Party employed propaganda to portray Hitler as a powerful figure and provided the populace with scapegoats for their suffering. The allure of a strong, singular dictator was appealing to Germans disillusioned by years of ineffective democratic governance. Some people embraced his radical ideology. Others opposed his racism, but felt compelled to vote for him anyway. Many were politically uninformed and simply caught up in the excitement. With each election, the Nazi Party's popularity surged until in 1932, they emerged as the largest party in the German parliament. Convinced of his destined role as Germany's savior, Hitler developed a megalomaniacal outlook. He ran for president and performed surprisingly well, but ultimately lost to the highly regarded World War I general, Paul von Hindenburg. However, as the leader of the largest party, Hitler insisted on becoming chancellor. Hindenburg hesitated due to Hitler's evident racism. Nevertheless, industrial leaders urged Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as chancellor, fearing the rising tide of communism. The Center Party leader von Papen secretly negotiated with Hitler, suggesting they make him chancellor while securing vice-chancellorship and most government positions for moderate conservatives, believing they could control Hitler. Unfortunately, everything went wrong. Hitler became chancellor in January 1933, but was not yet a dictator. In February, the German parliament building was set ablaze. Historians remain uncertain about who caused the fire, though many suspect the Nazis themselves. Blaming the communists, Hitler convinced President Hindenburg to sign an emergency decree allowing him to imprison all communists and political adversaries. Thus, many were sent to the first concentration camp in Dachau. Following President Hindenburg's death, Hitler seized the opportunity to propose a law enabling him to enact laws and decisions independently. With his opponents imprisoned and the SA using intimidation tactics, this law passed easily. Just 2 months after assuming the role of chancellor, Hitler transformed into a full-fledged dictator. However, he faced opposition from the SA, whose leader sought to replace the regular German army. Understanding the need to maintain the allegiance of the trained military, Hitler orchestrated a purge of SA leaders, including Rome, in June 1934. This event, known as the Night of the Long Knives, involved the assassination of around 200 individuals, including some whom Hitler had personal grudges against. With the military satisfied that their positions were secure, they pledged loyalty to their new Führer, cementing Hitler's absolute power. Life in Germany underwent a drastic transformation. Freedoms of press, expression, and public assembly were suppressed. Initially, Jews were marked and their businesses boycotted, but this escalated into the systematic murder of 6 million Jews in concentration camps. Additionally, hundreds of thousands faced forced sterilization for perceived physical and mental imperfections. The Hitler Youth program brainwashed the youth, training boys for violence while instilling in girls the notion that their purpose was to bear pure Aryan children. When confronted by horrified parents, children threatened to report them to the Gestapo. The standard greeting changed, and failure to comply could lead to concentration camp detention. Under this regime, it appeared that everyone supported the Nazis. Any dissent against Hitler risked severe consequences. Young Adolf was captivated by German nationalism. Growing up in hardship, he absorbed radical ideologies and anti-Semitism. The resentment stemming from Germany's defeat in WWI fueled his desire for revenge. A political movement that revered him as a deity, coupled with the adoration of countless followers, inflated his ego, paving the way for aggressive foreign policies that would eventually plunge the world into another catastrophic conflict, known as. Thus, the risk of the outbreak of World War II is inevitable. What Hitler will do to build and consolidate the fascist dictatorship will be detailed in Part 3.